to Sword and Board. I'm Luke.
And I'm Lars.
This is two brothers talking about movies.
Particularly movies that are pretty nerdy. They are the fantasy genre. And today, Lucas, for our intrepid listeners, we've got three movies that when you first broach them, or at least broach one of them, this idea that let's do these movies, they're not necessarily fantasy movies. They're fantasy adjacent, but when I started thinking about it more, they're really more legendary.
Yep.
And the legends, in my mind, are definitely fantasy.
Yeah. When I think about fantasy movies a lot of the time, I am not necessarily going straight to the Krulls and the Excaliburs, but I am...
The Conans, your sword and sorcery movies.
Yeah, I am probably going to go to a sword fight. I'm probably going to go to some kind of historical adjacent, fantasy adjacent thing as well. Something swashbuckling. Because swashbuckling adventures tend to be on the same spectrum. But before we get into that, Lars, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really good, actually. It's been a heck of a year. I'm glad that we're already in September, which means that we're almost out of 2020.
Yep.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Well, I thought, man, I can't wait to get out of 2019. Joke's on me.
I have been saying that since 2016, you know?
I wonder why.
Yeah, I know, right? And we keep talking, and just things keep getting weirder and weirder. Things are okay here. We're back on the uptick of, we were on like 75 to 80 degree days like the past week, and it's been nice. It's finally cooled down. Next 3 days are supposed to be in the 90s, which is just gross. But it's looking like there's a chance of snow on Tuesday here.
All right.
I'm stoked. That'll be nice. I'm tired of hot weather.
Isn't it funny how that's what you're considering as hot now, though?
Well, no,
it's not the same.
The
hot in Colorado is not the same
it's
as
not.
Mobile
but
hot.
I've despised hot weather my entire life. And spending 10 years in a swampy hell, we'll do that. We'll make it worse. So...
no, I mean, and down here, we're experiencing a heat wave, but I mean, things are good. Elliot starts like live classes on Tuesday. It's virtual, but he's going to be live, and there's the growing pains of that. And Eleanor wants to be in school with him, and but I mean, things are going pretty good. I mean, we have one last hurrah at the beach coming up. We're going to go to the Labor Day weekend beach trip, but. Beyond that, really just, I don't know, just kind of hunkering down and watching some fun movies.
Yep. I've been reading a lot lately, and I'm rereading one of my favorite comic series. Have you ever heard of Atomic Robo?
Atomic Robo.
Atomic Robo. It's now all online, but it's an actual print comic, and it's about a robot built by Nikola Tesla in the 20s, and his adventures throughout time. Or from the 20s to now. And the best description I've ever seen of it was for the tabletop RPG. You know how you can watch a documentary about archaeology, and it's a bunch of university professors and grad students carefully brushing dust from rocks, and they learn something very important about pottery? Meanwhile, Indiana Jones is also an archaeologist, but mostly he runs around shooting bad guys and having car chases. Apply the Indiana Jones model to every other field of study. And that's Atomic Robo.
Okay.
And it's him and his action scientists, and they fight science problems throughout history, and it's incredible.
Cool.
And it goes back and forth between like the first stories in the 40s when he's fighting the Nazis, and then it goes to now and through the 50s, and because it's non-linear and it's just his interactions with famous scientists and famous things that have happened throughout history, and it's really well done, really great art style, and really clever. And that's been cool. I've been really excited to reread that because I forgot how good it is.
I just went back and read Flashpoint.
Yep.
Which is a beautiful comic book. Really great, cool story. I hope that's the direction they're going with the Flash movie.
That's Francis Manapul, right? The artist?
I think so.
The kind of like
I think
pastel?
so, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah. Because I finished Batman 66, which was wonderful. And on the other end of the spectrum, I'm in the middle of Gotham Central, which is fantastic.
Genius. Oh my god, it's so good.
Such a good idea. One I really didn't like at all, and this is like the third or fourth time I've tried to read it. Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Crisis.
It is just brutal, and like the artwork is terrible. Like compared to, think through the order in which I've just read these. I've read Flashpoint, which is an incredibly sentimental, beautiful comic book. I read Batman 66, neat, kitschy, retro drawings, but then, it's still really cool. It's a love letter. And then you get to Crisis, and it's so dated and so 80s, and just like, it's just, ugh.
Yeah.
It was, I couldn't do it. It's a slog. This is like the third or fourth time I tried to read it. And I was like, nope, I can't do it again.
Well, it's kind of like Watchmen. It's groundbreaking and cutting edge at the time, but I don't get any enjoyment out of it. It's kind of bland and dated. It's really dated. But
there you
go. So it's kind of like King Lear. You write your thesis about it in college, but you don't really do anything past that because there's no real enjoyment for you anymore.
Yeah, I dig that. Yeah, and like the ground's broken already. I'm good.
But it's been great for the whole CW stuff. They made that incredible adaptation of it, and
which is really good. They did a really good Crisis
so much
story.
Better than it had any better than it had any right to be.
We're rambling. We're rambling here because these movies. I would say, Lucas, that these were not like the best fantasy movies that we've watched.
You'd be correct.
We watched one really good movie. Like I had forgotten how good it was movie.
Yep.
We watched one movie that I loved when I was a kid, and it's not that great. And then we watched one that we had never seen before, either of us, and we'll start with that one.
So, you know how you lean on the word neat a lot?
Yeah.
So I've noticed that I tend to do it I'll introduce a movie as, So the Adventures of Robin Hood, and I emphasize the Errol Flynn, Olivia de Havilland, who died like 5 days ago, and she was like 116.
Yeah.
And that's just,
And probably ate like red meat and smoked a pack of cigarettes every day.
Yep. And more
like
power to her.
COVID was scared of her. That's basically what.
Keith Richards and COVID.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So but a ton of other people, like the bad senator from Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
Yeah.
He's he's Prince John.
Yeah, and the guy they based Sinestro off of, David Niven. He's It
is Guy Gisborne, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks. So A to B plot, it's Robin Hood. We all know and love Robin Hood.
Love Robin Hood.
The thing is, I've seen this movie done better, and that's basically the Disney movie. And I don't know.
I've seen this movie done better, which is the cartoon. I've seen this movie done funnier, which is Men in Tights.
Yep.
I've seen this movie done darker, which is both the Prince of Thieves and the Taron Egerton movie. So then this one's just kind of like it's obviously it's the first one, right? Right? Is it the first one, or is it like the first big one?
It's probably the first big one. I don't know off the top of my head, but this is the Robin Hood movie that every single scrap of Robin Hood media is directly influenced by, is trying to be, or is desperately trying not to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so every Robin Hood story that there's been is basically trying to do this one.
It's the story of Robin Hood.
Yeah. And so he's a nobleman. King Richard is off fighting the Crusades. The land is poor and oppressed. Yada yada yada. He decides to fight for justice and the sanctity of Europe.
An outlaw.
Yeah,
and he steals from the rich, gives to the poor. There's an archery contest. He loves Maid Marian. Richard comes back. They fight the king. Like, they fight Prince John. The end.
Yeah, exactly.
It was interesting, though. There were some things that were different about this one than other Robin Hood movies that I've seen that I did like. And I liked the origin of him. Like, in Prince of Thieves, he's coming back from the Crusades, and he just starts being an outlaw.
Right.
This kind of gives him more, and in the newest one with Taron Egerton, he's almost like Zorro.
Yeah.
and all that. And then in the cartoon one, we are dumped in media res. He's already been Robin Hood for several years now, and he's the folk hero. This one, he is a nobleman. He's a Saxon, or he's a Norman. He's a Saxon, and I don't know much about the Normans and the Saxons. That's a period of history that did not
Well,
touch.
you want a greatest hits?
Let's go for it.
Okay, so long and short, the Saxons were the leftover Viking and Germanic invaders who came over and sacked post-Roman England, and they settled there. And the Normans were Frenchmen, Franks, who had crossed over in battle or in 1066, and they became the ruling class. It's why the word for cow, bovine, is Germanic in origin, but it's why the word beef is French in origin, because the person working the lands was going to be Germanic, but the person eating the beef was going to be French. And so the Saxons tended to be poorer, they tended to be farmers, they tended to be a bit more
rural.
Yeah, exactly. And the Normans were the rich people, they were the bougie people. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. And yeah, that's a very, very loose breakdown of what's going on.
Got it.
That's not 100%
Gotcha. Okay.
accurate, and it's not, exactly.
But I mean, it that's played up so much more in this one than in any other Robin Hood movie that I've seen. Like, I think it's the only. It's not just the rich and the poor. It is a class. It is a group of people that are overseeing another group, and he is a nobleman within this lower caste that is seeking to bring himself up and bring his people up. So that I really appreciated. I like that aspect of it. I don't know how you felt about it, but I just thought
yeah, no, that was a really cool take. It's at least very different, and it's interesting because it's more based off of some of the older written stuff, because they haven't had a chance to be a Robin Hood movie yet. Or at least a popular one, so they're throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. And so this is kind of like Howard Pyle and Ivanhoe almost.
Yeah. It's interesting. There's no sheriff.
Yeah, that was weird, but again,
it's the guy of Gisborne.
Right.
He's the bad guy, which is in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. He's the one that. But why a spoon, cousin? Why not an axe? Because it's dull, you twit. It'll hurt more. That's Guy of Gisborne.
Right. He's great.
I will have to say, Men in Tights. So we've already talked about Robin Hood Men in Tights. That movie is so much funnier now, in my opinion, and makes so much more sense now that I saw this. Because I always thought that Robin Hood Men in Tights, because it came relatively close to Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. I thought it was spoofing Prince of Thieves. It's not. It's spoofing this.
Yeah, and it's because Mel Brooks has such a love for classic cinema and classic Hollywood. This is his Robin Hood movie. But even beyond that, there's so many things reference this and have the same kind of color palette, like that amazing episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation where they all get transported to Q makes the whole simulation.
he smashes the guitar where Worf smashes Geordi's guitar. Sorry.
It's so good. That they even kind of changed that, because in the original script, the original idea, it was supposed to be Camelot, which makes way more sense as a mapping, because Picard's kind of in a love triangle with Q over Vash in that movie, in that episode. But because of the popularity of the Robin Hood movie that was out right then, they had to rework everything, and that's why it kind of feels weird. But it's it's so good. Sir, I protest. I am not a merry man.
Right. Okay. Okay. So, we were talking about, what were we talking about? We were talking. Oh, this. There's a lot of things in this movie that you can see, throughout others. We're talking about a lot of other things because there really isn't a lot to talk about here. I mean, to be honest, I liked, that montage of the people passing the word around, like the meeting in Sherwood, like, hey, Sherwood, like it's like myths building. Like I like that. That was neat. There's the neat. Robin Hood laughs so fucking much, and all of them laugh. Like, I get it. You're merry men.
Yeah.
Like, just chill the fuck out. Like, you don't have to laugh so much.
It's one of those things where they don't know how to play the character yet. So he's a lovable rogue who doesn't know what to do, and so he's
right.
He's a swashbuckler because we don't have
right.
those kinds of.
And
yet.
It's always bothered me with any of these movies that at least we don't see the fight with Little John and Robin Hood. But was Little John just like hanging out in that log all day?
I assumed it was he was doing that was a log that a lot of people crossed over, so he knew that if he camped there he could make some money.
And that's actually, they did that pretty well in the
Mel Brooks.
In Prince of Thieves.
Yeah.
They were robbing people. So that,
right.
Okay. But it just felt drawn out. I think that was my problem with this. It was almost a 2-hour long movie, and it was just really drawn out, or at least 2 hours. It hit all the beats. Like there's he splits the arrow in half, and he does all these things, and all it just was really plotting. And then we finally get to this crazy sword fight at the end. Mm-hmm. And Dad mentioned how he thought it was a great sword fight. I thought it was terrible because it looked weird. It was all sped up.
Every sword fight in this movie is sped up, and I noticed that too. I was actually, just to bring that up, that first sword fight he has against all the goons in Nottingham Castle is super sped up.
Why? I don't get it.
Okay, so what I thought was great was that castle set.
Yeah.
That circular staircase. In every movie that's about Golden Age Hollywood, there is a castle set with that circular staircase.
It's in Frankenstein. It's in
The Rocketeer.
Yeah.
When
Yeah. It is. You're right. And it's funny because that scene where Robin comes and brings the boar that he's killed from the King's Forest, shot for shot, Mel Brooks remade that. Was brilliant. Mm-hmm. What we've seen better sword fights in this project, particularly and not even just Highlander's is crazy epic sword fight. It's not great choreography, but there's just weight to it. But
exactly.
Sword fights in this era, we've seen better ones. Prince Valiant was a way better sword fight.
Agreed, and it's the weight was added to it because the props were
getting dented.
They felt like
belt beat the shit.
Yeah,
and then but it had great sword clangs. Mm-hmm. In the other movies. This one was click, 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 click,
and it's a lot more. They're not sword fighting. They're hitting each other. They're hitting their swords against each other.
You were absolutely right. That what made Highlander great was that they were not sword fighting. They were trying to knock each other's heads off with each other's swords, and you were blocking that from happening. This is I'm making a motion in the air where I'm not actually thrusting my sword at you. It is at the air above you. That's a sword fight, and that's not a sword fight.
And it's I will say it's fascinating to watch the history of cinema, the way costumes have changed and what we expect to seem as a movie, because this is still very much films are plays we're able to do different things with.
Right.
So these look like stage costumes. These look because they're bright and they're colorful, and they have to. I was jokingly thinking when he's riding through the forest, I'm like, is that red guy going to turn out to be Will Scarlet? Yes, he is.
Yep. Well, they have to pop, right? You have the outfits have to pop. Yeah. It it was fine. Errol Flynn was a very charming, dashing guy. I get it, but not my favorite Robin Hood.
No,
by far. Which is, and some of that might be nostalgia for the other movies that this is the first time I saw this, but it just didn't land for me. The one thing that really landed about this next movie that we'll talk about was the credits song.
So what's the better song? All for One and One for Love, or Everything I Do it for You?
That's Sophie's choice. I feel like I'm Meryl Streep right now. So we're talking about the Three Musketeers from 1994.
Yeah, I think so. This is an utterly inexplicable movie because someone thought that let's make a Three Musketeers movie.
93.
93, okay. So let's make a Three Musketeers movie because we can adapt another story. Robin Hood's popular. It's kind of riding off the tales of Robin Hood.
Yep.
Let's get a bunch of actors at the height of their power, and let's do. When I was watching this, I was thinking this is more or less Prince of Thieves done right. Because it hits the similar beats of Prince of Thieves. It hits the similar style of Prince of Thieves. It's just a little bit shinier and a little bit cleaner looking.
This is correct.
Maybe not done right. That's not
done. This is like it's Young Guns. So Young Guns was a western with these actors, right?
Yeah.
And it's gritty and it's dirty, but it's a young kind of feeling, thing. And I feel like this is the same kind of energy, but translated to a historical swashbuckling movie where it's 90s, it's kind of hip, they're young, they're not like stuffy kind of thing.
They've got nice like faux period costumes. Everything's really bright and colorful.
Right. Nobody has a French accent.
Which is perfect.
And again, going off of this is more historical than Robin Hood. There were musketeers. There were plots to overthrow King Louis and all this kind of stuff. But
Cardinal Richelieu was an actual person.
There probably was a man in the Iron Mask. So the Three Musketeers show up later in Man in the Iron Mask, obviously. But so this is more historical, but it's still like the legend of the Three Musketeers, right? This is a legendary story. A to B plot of the legendary story of the Three Musketeers. Because it does hit most of the beats.
Yeah, so the A to B plot is that a young Luke Skywalker travels to Paris to train with 3 Obi-Wans who are not
just
quite
spit
as
out my
competent.
drink. Jesus. That's good.
So, like, together, the 3 of them make one okay Obi-Wan. Yeah.
I would say that Kiefer Sutherland is almost at Obi-Wan. He's like Padawan level Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
The other two are just his fuck-up friends.
So, and so he goes, D'Artagnan travels to Paris. He wants to be a musketeer because he wants to be a musketeer like his father before him.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, yep.
I'm going to milk this all fucking night,
Keep going. Go for it.
So, he wants to become a musketeer like his father before him. He finds out that they've been disbanded and that they have scattered to the winds after Order 66 because Cardinal Richelieu has reformulated France into a grand empire. The king has been overthrown and deposed, sort of, or he's in the process of being overthrown.
Like unbeknownst to him, really.
Yeah, unbeknownst to him, yeah.
Because he's a kid.
Right, so Richelieu's Darth Vader, who was once one of the Musketeers but was kicked out by Obi-Wan.
Richelieu is not.
No, Richelieu was not but his Darth Vader.
Hit Richelieu's Darth Vader. Got it.
The guy with the
Richelieu. I thought you said Richelieu is Darth Vader. You were possessive. Yes. Possessive apostrophe. Richelieu's Darth Vader. Got it.
Who dresses in all black. Who is also Guy of Gisborne from Prince of Thieves. Yep. Hitting the beats of that again.
Such a great voice. That guy has such an awesome villain.
He was
voice.
The bad guy in The Crow. He's the bad guy in The Crow.
Yep, he's just this grand, and I think I wrote his name down.
He's a Canadian actor. We looked it up when we were watching it.
But he's reliably wonderful as a bad guy. He is just perfect. So he's a shining part of the movie.
Yeah, and so D'Artagnan goes. He partners up with them. I can't remember if it's part of the actual original movie or if it's something that we've done, but D'Artagnan challenges original book, but D'Artagnan challenges all 3 of the Musketeers to a duel at the exact same time.
1 hour. It's 1 hour different.
Yeah.
And that's part of the story. That's a very famous part of the story. It's, he gets to Paris, the Musketeers are disbanded. He pisses off Porthos, and Aramis at different points, and each one of them says, okay, I shall duel you at 1 o'clock, I shall do you at 2 o'clock, and they all show up at the same time because they're buddies, and it's like, hey, wait a minute, I'm supposed to fight this guy at 2.
I can't let you kill him, I have to kill him.
Right.
The bad guy, Count de Roquefort, is Michael Wincott.
There we go.
Michael Anthony Claudio Wincott.
Perfect.
He's a Canadian actor. It's amazing. I love it's so few movies now are sincere.
Mm-hmm.
There's no irony to this. To everything that happens. There's no like winking at the camera. They're acting earnestly. They are going out of their way to make it think, and I appreciate that a lot. And then there's Tim Curry.
Yeah, Tim Curry's in a different movie. Tim Curry is just still being Tim Curry.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I loved and he's great in it. But so first of all, Chris O'Donnell's a horrible actor. I'm sorry, he's terrible in this. Every time he talked, it's just like,
yeah,
I don't care.
He's an American. Yeah, he's playing a surfer dude, a surfer kid.
Well, not even that, but just like he's got this like his mouth's always open for some reason.
Yeah,
and it just looks
dull surprise.
It's just dull surprise the entire time, and I'm like, come on, man, you're fucking D'Artagnan. You're supposed to like be a little bit more swashbuckly. I could have done without him. I thought that Kiefer Sutherland was great. Like he was like the tortured guy. He was awesome. Charlie Sheen is playing Charlie Sheen, and whatever, that's fine. He was fine in it. I could have done without Oliver Platt's like little like
I want to know why they
asides.
got Okay, Kiefer Sutherland makes sense. Good actor, has been in a lot of things. Charlie Sheen makes sense. He's a hot property at that time. Oliver Platt,
yeah, and like he made little
and
like
he's great. I think he's good.
He's funny. He makes little, but he's in a different movie too. Like he and Tim Curry are in a different movie because he's making little like almost 90s little quips throughout it, and then like freaking Richelieu, all for one and more for me. And it's like, oh come on, that's so silly. And then I forget who says this to him, but like, you shall answer to God. You first, and like he stabs the guy, and it's like, this is so cheesy, and like you're great, Tim Curry, but it just felt out of place. It felt felt very winky 90s. Hey, look at what we're doing. Everything else felt like, hey, we're just making a swashbuckling movie.
And it's got pretty set pieces. It's got pretty costuming, competent sword fighting. What's funny is so the reason why Charlie Sheen punches people more than all the other actors is that he didn't attend the 6-week sword fighting course that everyone else did because he either A, had another movie, or B, an important drugs appointment.
Right.
And
probably little column A, little column B, actually.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why he punches people. So this, as I said, this is a lot like Prince of Thieves. In the same way that it's kind of cheesy, but it's sincere. Music does a lot towards it.
100%.
Because Bryan Adams just knocks it out of the park again. But he also they use that instrumental way more.
Yeah. Throughout the whole movie, it's not
so
just.
much, but yeah,
it's so much more than everything I do. I'll do it for you.
And it's perfect. It's such a good piece of 90s.
It's rousing. Absolutely. Yeah. It's the school of, much like Adventures of Robin Hood, the school of I quickly stab you and you're dead instantly. Which I understand it's a movie, so you can't have it's easier just to all right, you're dead. But when people get stabbed, they don't just die instantly. No, you do not. It's painful. You bleed out, and you're in agony, and it's not just one and done kind of thing. And every one of these guys, it's I don't even think that thing went that deep in some of them, and they're instantly dead. So it was I don't know. I have been stabbed accidentally worse than these people, and yes, and you're alive. Last time we checked. But it was a fine movie. It was a fun to rewatch it. It was definitely one that I watched a ton when I was little. We watched a ton of this. See, that's funny is I don't remember what I remember of this movie before seeing it now was when the when the Jedis all come back and they all come out rushed out in their blues. That's what I remember. That is the only thing I remember from watching this as a kid. Really? Well, I mean, it wasn't one that it wasn't on every. It wasn't Robin Hood. Robin Hood was on every week. Yeah. At our house. But this one, I remember watching this quite a few times, and mostly, I mean, that song now though. Yes. And the song we're thinking is "All for One, All for Love" by Bryan Adams, Rod Stewart, and Sting, and it's just awesomeness, vortex into itself, which will go a long way, and I think boosting this movie's ranking, because we have made a big point of music is a huge part of this endeavor. It is, and this one is going to help propel it, because otherwise, there's not a lot to talk about with it. It's fun, but that's about it, and it's
So, speaking of music, you know what's an interesting thing when movies use music outside of their time frame to establish the setting better than what would have actually been there? Like
Quentin Tarantino does phenomenally in Django Unchained. When everything's like the big gunfight and he has like this bumping rap song like this. I get it. Great.
Baz Luhrmann in Great Gatsby to
Jay-Z
establish the excess of the era.
Yep, perfect.
And then there's A Knight's Tale.
And A Knight's Tale, like I wish it had even gone further, to be honest, because this was a really fun movie to rewatch. This was really good.
One of the things that I remember when I rewatched this was Chadwick Boseman died a couple of days ago.
He did.
And that's really sad. And it reminded me a lot of Heath Ledger dying, because that was a same kind of, this is a talent that we have lost far, 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 far too soon. And
you're right. Because, I mean, with Chad Boseman, I mean, not just Black Panther, but just, I mean, incredible talent. Seemed like a really stand-up dude, too.
Yep.
Right? And, Heath Ledger had his demons and whatever, but he also seemed like a pretty stand-up dude. Like, he didn't seem like fame had gone to his head. Like, he was just a good actor and seemed like a pretty cool guy.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No.
But I completely see the parallels there. Is that both very cool people that we have unfortunately lost way too early.
And watching A Knight's Tale again, I hadn't seen it in a couple of years. How utterly refreshing it was to watch Heath Ledger in a movie that's actually good.
He's charming. He's charming as hell.
And it's just, he's so good to watch, and there's a lot of subtleties the way he plays things. It's fantastic. What's the A to B plot? So
A to B plot, Heath Ledger's character, what's his real name?
His real name is Will Thatcher.
Will, that's right. So Will is a squire to just a knight that's on his last legs, and he dies. He's basically he's dead. The knight dies. I think he was drunk and he just passes out and he dies. And it's like they're in a tournament. Somebody has to go or they're going to forfeit. And they're like, we haven't eaten in days. Like him and his two buddies that are also squires. Like, we haven't eaten in days. We've got to do something. So he puts the armor on, and that's a no. If they make a big deal of jousting was the football, the soccer, the hockey, every sport that has fanatical fans about.
Yeah.
In this time frame, it was that wrapped up like that was the sport. And I loved how they made it really violent and it was scary, but you had to be a nobleman to participate. So he puts it on. He goes and fights. He wins. He realizes, hey, if I train a little bit, I could be pretty good at this. So he pretends to be a nobleman so he could, win money. And along the way, he wins the heart of a fair maiden. He pisses off a real knight. Hilarity ensues. And, everybody comes out good at the end. But so that's the A to B plot. And it could have been just, standard stuff. They made a lot of interesting creative choices, and one of them is when they're going into the stadium, the first, it's not this it's Queen's We Will Rock You starts blaring. Mm-hmm. And then there's other times where they're at a dance and a David Bowie song, Golden Years, step pops in. I loved that because it really it showed you this is a way to look at the world so you understand it without having to beat you over the head with all the thing I just said. Back in my day, this is you completely get it. Okay, this is the stadium sport. Got it.
Because you can do film language allows you to do different things, and it's perfect. It's such a great little choice. And I agree.
It was, and I wish they'd had it more.
Yep, because there's times where I don't know what they would have chosen for those moments, but when she comes to him he's been beaten to hell, and she comes to him in his tent. I don't know what kind of song they could have played there, but that was
some sort of Al Green sort of thing.
Yeah, it's this orchestral and now we're a serious movie. Damn it.
Yeah, you could have totally done a Marvin Gaye and Al Green, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
But
James Purfoy's in it, which he's great, as I said. It's funny.
James
so
Purfoy.
When James Purfoy plays the Black Prince of Wales.
Oh,
the
that's
future
right.
ruler. Yeah. He's I made a joke about how when we watched Solomon Kane that you only get James Purfoy when you can't get Gerard Butler, and you only get Gerard Butler when you can't get Hugh Jackman. Well, what's even funnier is the guy who plays Edamar, the bad guy. You only get him when you can't get James Purfoy.
Right, and they're both in this movie. 2 for the price of 1.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it was I don't know. It's just it was a lot of fun. It had a really great theme. It was about, can a man change his star? And his dad tells, when he's little, he's like, Will, we're poor, we're Thatchers, but any man, if you work hard enough and if you're a good man, you can change your stars. You can change your destiny. And of course he does. But it's funny. It's another Three's Company plot where he's hiding something, and if he just was honest about it early, all the hullabaloo probably wouldn't have been that bad.
Yeah.
I loved there's little touches where his blacksmith, he hires a woman because he can't afford a guy, and she ends up being awesome, and she has a little Nike swoops on her suit of armor, and it's super light, so he can just hop on his horse without a problem.
Yeah, and you've got Mark Addy and Alan Tudyk, who... Alan Tudyk is another one of those character actors who he has made a career out of being the guy... He's going to be one of our generation's that guys.
I love him.
Oh, he is great, and I feel like in a couple years he may end up being like a Bruce Campbell level guy, because we're all sitting there, like him and Nathan Fillion both. But like Alan Tudyk is a prolific voice actor now, and in a lot of Disney movies too.
He's the bad guy in the first season of Doom Patrol, and he's awesome. He's also so the first season it's not Nowhere Man. Mr. Nobody is the bad guy, and he's omnipresent. So he's narrating the story that he's also the villain in real time.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
He's great. He's so good at it. And then
he's King Candy in Wreck-It Ralph. And he's like the corrupt businessman in Big Hero 6, and he's Hoban Washburn from Firefly.
He was the guy that takes LSD at Death at a Funeral on accident and ends up naked on the roof.
Yep.
That was so good.
He's in Tucker and Dale vs. Evil.
Yeah.
Have you ever...
Yes, he is. He is.
So good.
And then who I forget the guy's name. It's a terrible comic book nerd thing of me. He's Vision.
Oh, Paul Bettany.
Paul Bettany. Yep. So Paul Bettany is Chaucer. So this is A Knight's Tale, and they throw in that this is actually Chaucer. So Chaucer, the Canterbury Tales. This is just what inspired him to write his tales of life in medieval England.
So who has 2 thumbs and has actually never read the Canterbury Tales?
Oh, this guy. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I read part of it. That was it.
When we were watching this, I brought it up with Victoria, and she's like, "You never had to read that in high school?" No, I didn't. Somehow that one slipped through. Mr. Stanton, got us to read Batman comics and not, the Canterbury Tales.
We read some other. It's funny too because there's things that I remember reading in high school that I know other people didn't, but then there's other things I didn't read I didn't read Hamlet in high school.
You didn't?
No, I read a bunch of other ones, but not Hamlet. I didn't read it in college either. We read a bunch of other ones, but we didn't read Hamlet. It was interesting. So, so Chaucer's in it. He's William, who now goes by the name of Count Ulrich von Liechtenstein from Guilderland. So he makes up titles and all that kind of stuff. And then Chaucer is his hype man, and he gets the crowd all whipped up, and which is awesome. That's so cool. He falls in love with the woman. His real identity comes out. The bad guy is just a douche. Just a bad guy. He's a bad guy, and he's
the reason guillotines were invented.
Right. At one point, he's fighting. He's at a tournament, and there's one guy that they realize is the Black Prince of Wales. So everybody else forfeits because they don't want to hurt him. But the guy just wanted to fight. The guy just wanted to be a part of it. And William sees that in him. He recognizes it.
He wouldn't have taken the chance if he wasn't willing to risk it.
He didn't want. He's here to do this. So he fights him, and the Black Prince is awesome. I thank you. You knew who I was, but you let me do this, and that pays off in the end because he shows honor.
And I've missed that the first time I watched this. He's actually the guy who at one of the early, because he encounters him 3 times at an early tournament. Ulrich hits him and says he meets him in the middle and says, "I'm done, but I've never retreated. All I'm asking is you let me finish the joust on my own terms.
Yes.
And he says, "Yep, I get it. You retire. I'm fine with that." And then he does the second one where he attacks him and says, "You knew who I was, and you still attacked. You still went after me." And then he saves him at the end and knights him, which I thought was great.
Yeah, and then he gets to fight at the end, and he knocks the bad guy on his ass, and he gets the girl, and everything like that. It's a cute, fun movie. I was wondering though, so at the end he yells William, like he yells his own name as he's attacking the guy. Why does he do that?
So actually, I asked the same question when we watched it, and Victoria brought it up that it's him. It's William. He's no longer He's no longer Ulrich von Liechtenstein. It's not even his dad's name. He's not even his family name of Thatcher. This is his own doing it. He is myself, like William is doing this. A guy who basically had no name, and he is attacking this person who has a stack of names and titles behind him. That it is just a common person doing it. That it is his own. It's his own achievement essentially.
Okay, all right, I can appreciate that.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're in Beowulf when he stabs his way up through the monster and screams his own name.
Beowulf.
Yeah, exactly. It's not quite as ridiculous as that, but
that was pretty ridiculous.
No, I'm not hiding that one.
Okay, I mean this is a fun movie that you can find this one on Netflix.
Yes, it just dropped on Netflix relatively recently.
Adventure of Robin Hood is on HBO Max, and then Three Musketeers
Disney Plus.
Because everything's on Disney Plus. What's the worst one? And it's not like the worst one. It was just the worst one that we watched. I feel like this evening. Adventures of Robin Hood. Where does that go? Because Prince Valiant's better than it.
I would agree with that.
And I would say that both of the Robin Hoods that we've watched are better than it.
We've watched more Robin Hoods than any other subgenre of film.
No, there's got to be dragon movies, right?
I don't know, but I don't.
So 1, 2, 3. So we watched 4 Robin Hood movies. We watched 3 pirate movies. It is not better than the Robin Hoods that we've watched. So it's already below 20.
Yeah.
I was more entertained by both of the Pirates movies and the movies in between. So that brings us down to 26.
I will always love Last Witch Hunter. Last Witch Hunter was just fun. I'm actually tumbling pretty low.
I would put it between. I'd put it between Never Ending Story and Cast a Deadly Spell. Maybe.
Yeah. The problem is it wasn't anywhere near as enjoyable as a lot of these. It may be appreciably better than Bulletproof Monk, but I had a lot more fun than in Bulletproof Monk.
Okay.
And that's I'm tumbling through this. I know you don't like Van Helsing, but if somehow a pop-up on my screen came up and Van Helsing showed up, I'd probably turn off the recording. I love that movie, but that doesn't mean it's good.
Right.
But I don't know. Neverending Story has a lot of nostalgia for a lot of people, but I don't get it. I think Cast a Deadly Spell is, unfortunately, it's not ambitious. It's ambitious, but it doesn't know what it could be. So I think I'd go with in between there. I think you're right on that one.
Wait, can you say? I'm sorry. Repeat that.
Neverending Story and Cast a Deadly Spell in between there.
Okay.
Because that's Neverending Story. It's visually beautiful, but it's kind of meh, sort of like Robin Hood. But Robin Hood also sets the groundwork for a lot of things, and Cast a Deadly Spell is a really interesting idea that doesn't go anywhere near far enough and doesn't realize what it could be. In the same way, it could have influenced things, but Robin Hood actually did appreciably influence things.
Okay. Gotcha.
So, what's better? Everything I do it for you. Or...
Or All for Love.
All for One and One for Love. Yeah.
Robin Hood Prince of Thieves is a better movie.
You think so?
I think so. That's a better movie. The song is great. For both of them, I gotta give it to Prince of Thieves.
I think I agree with you on that. It doesn't feel great.
No.
I think it's probably because I have seen Prince of Thieves more than most movies, and I think I agree with you. Three Musketeers was fun, but it's I'm gonna watch it more Now that I'm older, I think I enjoy it more, but I don't think it's going to have the same kind of staying power that Prince of Thieves has had.
Correct.
So I don't think it's as good as Pirates World's End because it doesn't go far enough in its insanity.
No. But I would put it above Sorcerer's Apprentice.
I think I agree with you on that too, because Sorcerer's Apprentice doesn't have quite the same. It's fun. It's not as much fun as
This feels more heroic. I like the heroism of this one.
Right. I think I agree with you there.
And it's very rousing. So. Knight's Tale.
Ooh. So what is it definitely not better than?
I mean, I like this movie a lot. This is.
Me
too. This is. I know. I like it. It's not better than the original Pirates.
Yeah, but it's definitely better than Beowulf.
Then there we go.
Yeah, that's a new number 11.
Yeah. No. I really like that one a lot. It's fun. Awesome, Lucas. Where can people find us?
We can be found on Twitter at SwordInBoardcast. Also on Instagram at SwordInBoardcast. If you have recommendations or discussions, swordandboardcast at gmail.com. We have our side project, Sword and Board presents Board, James Board, dropping every other episode.
Lucas and I are going through each James Bond movie in chronological order with our dad. So if 2 Farabees aren't enough for you, come check that one out. There's an additional Farabee for the price of 2.
Our theme song, Goblin Road Trip, is produced by Ryan Boyd. You can find them at Ryan Boyd on Twitter. Our artwork is produced by Wes Forbes. Lars, is there anything else you want to say?
No, just these dark times, remember that any man can change his stars.
All right. Have a good night, guys.
You too.